Welcome to My Spoonie Sisters, featuring stories from special guests dedicated to empowering those with chronic illness. Our goal? To connect people and provide the support and tools they need to live a better life. For those with chronic illness, our energy levels just fade faster. We must be more purposeful with the spoons allotted to us. So grab your coffee or tea, sister, and tune in as My Spoonie Sisters share stories of living with chronic illness. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to My Spoonie Sisters podcast. Today, I am incredibly honored to introduce a truly inspiring guest. This is Maggie Bushway. Maggie is a 28-year-old author and filmmaker from Shannon, Mississippi, who has turned her personal challenges into powerful stories of resilience and hope. Having faced brain cancer growing up and continuing to navigate life with seizures, Maggie's experiences have profoundly shaped her creative voice. Her work masterfully weaves themes of pain and adversity, inspiring audiences to find strength in their struggles. Maggie, thank you so much for being here, and let's dive in.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
It's my pleasure. Your journey is truly remarkable. Could you share more about how your experiences with brain cancer and seizures have influenced your creative process? And if you want, you can even start by introducing us to how this kind of started for you.
When I was 7, I was diagnosed with brain cancer, and I started chemo when I was 8. When I was in chemo, I had already been interested in writing ever since I learned how to write. But when I was in chemo, I got the idea to write a book about my experience with childhood brain cancer. And I didn't know where my cancer journey was going. I just knew that there were a lot of kids out there who are going through similar things and need some hope. So I started writing a book then. And it was pretty short. In my head, it was an entire book. But I stopped writing it at some point because I got too sick to finish last year. I found the manuscript for it and all of my dad's old blog posts. So I put it together, filled in the gaps, my memories, and interviewed my parents and siblings, and we turned it into a book. So that's one way that it's impacted my creativity is, that was something very hard that we went through, but we turned it into a creative process. My little sister did sketches in it that look like a 7-year-old drew it. She's actually a professional artist, but she, did it as if it were a child who drew them. So on the pages of the manuscript where I call it Little Maggie, quote something, then I have a sketch under it. It was a very creative process for us. And even though it was very hard to look back on those memories. And it was very hard when I was 8 to deal with some of the things I was going through. But creativity is like healing in both of those ways.
That sounds incredible. And I bet it's just an absolute labor of love.
Yes, it was really exciting at the same time. Even though it was like difficult and healing, it was very fun.
I think to have your family involved in such a way, that also makes it extra special.
Yes. I have my dad listed as the co-author because when I found his blog post, it was as if I was reading a book about myself. And I didn't know like 50% of the things in there. So it was like I was reading a book about myself that I had no clue, all the details in it.
Was it kind of interesting looking back and reading it from a different perspective and what your life was like for all of them?
Yes, it was, especially as an adult. I had a completely different perspective as a 7, 8, 9-year-old. But as an adult, I can completely see my parents' perspective.
I think that's fascinating to be able to look back and see both sides of what things were like. Seeing what it was like through your eyes getting diagnosed as a child, but then seeing from your parents' eyes what it was like raising you as you were going through this.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
So as a filmmaker and author, you craft stories that delve into themes of pain and adversity. What draws you to these topics, and how do you hope they resonate with your audience?
I think what draws me to the topics is just life experience. I still have seizures and I have some autoimmune diseases as well. I can relate to a lot of like the themes and the target audience that draws me to it. And then also, a lot of people just don't know what life is like when you have chronic illnesses. And I want to raise awareness to that and hope that other people who see it, who don't have chronic illnesses, will understand their family members or friends a little bit better.
So, you mind taking us back a little bit into the beginning of your journey? So, you were diagnosed at, did you say 7 years old?
Yes.
How did your parents find out what was going on with you?
I was very smart when I was younger. My mom was homeschooling us, and at 4, I learned how to read because my brother was learning how to read. And I just kind of kept up with his grade level. And then all of a sudden, it was like I was unlearning everything and just was doing terrible at school. And I was afraid of everything when I had been pretty much fearless right before then. It was just a complete change in like personality and cognitive abilities. My mom she advocated for me a lot, and my dad. They took me to lots of doctors, and for about a year and a half, they're just trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And I was sent from specialist to specialist, psychologist, and no one could figure it out until like a doctor from our church said that she wouldn't mind seeing me. My mom brought me in and I had a temporal lobe seizure in front of her and she knew exactly what it was. So we're really blessed to have that connection.
What was the path forward from there? You mentioned that you had treatments. Was that all that you had to go through, or was there any kind of surgery? Walk us through that a little bit.
I had a tumor resection surgery when I was first diagnosed, and they weren't able to get the whole tumor. They got as much as they could, but my tumor is very deep in the brain. It's still there because it's too deep to resect the whole thing. So then I had chemotherapy, and it was resistant to that. And then I had gamma knife radiation, and that killed the tumor. But it also made my seizures a lot worse. So I had, for a few years, I was like living in and out of the hospital and just having seizures all the time. I had a right temporal lobectomy, took out the right temporal lobe, amygdala, and hippocampus, and that helped a lot with my seizures. Also getting a vagal nerve stimulator has helped with my seizures. We've done a lot of different surgeries and treatments over the years, but right now I still have them, but I'm at a more stable point.
That's absolutely a lot to go through at such a young age.
Yeah.
Facing such significant health challenges at a young age can shape a person in profound ways. How have these experiences influenced your perspective on life and storytelling?
I was so young when all of this started that it kind of has felt normal to me. You know, growing up in this medical world, I didn't know anything different, and my siblings didn't either. So it felt weirdly normal. But, you know, as I was growing up, I started realizing, oh, this isn't normal. There's like something wrong. And so growing up, it shaped me into someone who, you know, has gone through a lot, but can also look back and see without all of these different things I went through, I wouldn't be who I am now. In my book, I call it that like pearls, that all these hardships over time, they turn into something beautiful, pearls. In my writing, I like to kind of highlight that you go through a lot of adversary, but it doesn't end there. You can find something beautiful in it.
I love that. And I think your description is so great. Calling
Thank
it
you.
pearls like that, it's beautiful.
Thank you. My dad actually came up with the concept of it. I need to give him credit.
Absolutely. Well, good thinking. I love it. Creativity often serves as a form of healing for many. Has writing and filmmaking helped you process or navigate your own journey?
Yes, especially with my memoir. A lot of like my short films and documentaries have also been healing I've done some documentaries on long COVID and interviewing people who have some health conditions. And those have also been healing. But writing my memoir, I think, has been the most healing experience I've ever had. Just going back through my entire life and piecing together all these memories that I couldn't really put on a timeline, or, I just vaguely remembered, connecting dots and seeing, okay, this is a full story, but it's not over yet. It's okay that it doesn't end up that I suddenly got better and then everything's okay. It's kind of ongoing, but it's still a story.
And to go with that, what advice would you give to someone living with a chronic condition whose dreams of pursuing a creative career but feels overwhelmed by their challenges?
That's something the past year probably I've struggled with is I've had a hard time working on film sets because I was recently diagnosed with myasthenia gravis, which impacts the muscle strength. So, I'll be like working on a film set and just get completely drained and have to like lie down before I can get back up and keep going. But that doesn't really work well on a film set. You just kind of have to keep going. I kind of had to rethink what my career is going to look like. And I came to the conclusion that I love video editing. That's something that I can do on my own time. And, from the couch, from bed, and sometimes from my desk or sometimes at a coffee shop. And I can do it, when I feel up to it. And same with writing. And I can, take my time. I can do it, how I want to do it and how I'm able to do it. I also started doing social media management and graphic design. Those are all careers that you can have that it's not what I wanted to do originally, but it's something that still is creatively fulfilling. To me, it's something I still really enjoy. I would just tell people kind of rethink the definition of like creativity, and it's not just one career or one corner of the creative process. There's many options, and you can do it at your own time. You can do it when you feel up to it, and it's not just this is something I can't do, or this is something I can do. There's a lot of gray areas, but the gray areas are, more, it's more of a positive thing,
Absolutely. And there's a lot of flexibility in positions like that. I think that's what's so wonderful in our community is, again, the flexibility that we have to do the things that bring us joy and that we to do.
Yeah.
I guess my advice to chime in there with you would be don't be afraid to look at things from a different perspective. Try a new angle to find a way of still loving the things you love to do.
Yeah, there's so many things you can try, even from your bed.
Can you tell us about any current or upcoming projects that you are working on and what you hope to share with the world through them?
I got the idea to take my book and different individual stories in it and write a series of short stories based off of stories within my book, but written from a different perspective, but like still based off of true events. People reading it or watching it can see, from my perspective, or see from my parents' perspective, or see from a doctor's perspective even, and just kind of rewrite it a little bit so that a lot of different people can identify with it. So I'm calling it the Pearls Collection, and hopefully I'll be able to do it soon. We'll just have to see what my body allows me to and when.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Can you tell listeners where they can find your current book and ways they can follow you?
You can find Pearl's memoir on childhood brain cancer and hope on Amazon, both paperback and on Kindle. I'm working on hardcover. Hopefully that'll happen soon. You can also find it on Barnes & Noble website and Walmart website. I'm working on getting it into local stores, and right now you can just find it on the websites. So I'm working on distributing it to hospitals as well. That's my main goal, is for people in hospitals to be able to get it from gift shops. So yeah, still a lot of work to do.
That's exciting. You mentioned that you also have been diagnosed with a couple of autoimmune conditions. Do you mind talking about that a little bit?
Yeah. I was diagnosed with Sjogren's syndrome when I was in college, and I got diagnosed with that because I started having severe neuropathy in my feet, and so it felt like I was walking on shattered glass. And we were doing a lot of different tests. I was struggling with, working on film sets and stuff because of that, and I got diagnosed with Sjogren's. I'm getting treated for it, and I still have neuropathy, but it's not as severe. Now, it doesn't hurt when people touch me most of the time. So I have that. And then with myasthenia gravis, that was a more recent diagnosis, but I am in treatment for that as well. And my mom actually has it too. So it's been really interesting to, compare notes with her. And usually if it's a weather related flare, then she doesn't feel good too. So we're able to relate to each other in that way.
It's always nice to have someone that we can talk to about it and they get exactly what we're feeling at that moment. Do you feel like each of your conditions are pretty well managed at this point?
I think so. My seizures are kind of like they find ways around my treatments. So things will work well for a little while, and then we'll, kind of have to adjust my meds. I just started a new medicine yesterday. So it's like every 3 months, we kind of adjust my vagus nerve stimulator and adjust my medicine, and that'll hold for a little bit. But we have a good pattern down with figuring out when I need to try something else.
That sounds really good.
Yeah.
Is there a last piece of advice that you would like to share with listeners?
I would just share that if you're listening to this and you have a chronic illness, even though, it's not you're not going to get completely better, there are ups and downs with it. And in the ups, there are a lot of things you can do creatively, and, you can pursue your career and your hobbies. And I know that there's downs as well, but just, hope for the ups, and, put your hope in. There are times that you'll, be able to be more active with creative things and with your career. So I would say hope in that. And then for people who don't have chronic illnesses, they're listening to this, maybe your friends or family do. And I would just say to, listen to their experience, and to just be there for them. And there were a lot of people that were there for me and still are there for me. And that's been like one of the most helpful things, is just having close friends and family.
Absolutely agree with you. I think that's really sound advice.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maggie, for sharing your incredible story and creative spirit with us today. Your work is a beacon of hope and inspiration for those around you. And I cannot wait to hear about your next book when it comes out.
Thank you.
Now, how can listeners find, follow, and get in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, and Facebook.
Okay. We'll be sure to link all of your important links in the show notes so that people can find and reach out to you. And thank you for your time. It was such a pleasure to have you on today.
I enjoyed it.
All right, listeners, until next time, don't forget your spoon. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only. Consult your own physician for any medical issues that you may be having. The information should not be taken as a replacement for medical, clinical, professional advice, diagnoses, or medical intervention. My Spoonie sisters and guests will not be held liable for any of the consequences of such action or inaction. Trigger warning. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics including, but not limited to, suicide, abuse, mental illness, and chronic disease. You are advised to refrain from listening if you are likely to be offended or adversely impacted by any of these topics. None of the guests or hosts will be responsible for your use of the information contained therein. Life is not merely to be alive, but to be well. Living a life with a chronic illness is best described with one word: unpredictable. Be Well's products are designed to make the unpredictable easier to deal with. Back when I was getting my infusions, I would have loved to have their adult zip hoodie. They even have one in pink. They also have everything from one-day pill holders to urgency buckets. So remember, they want to make your life a little easier. So be sure to check out Be Well.